the ideal structure for a ban list announcement.
Next on Eternal Durdles.
Hello, everybody. Eternal Durdles is celebrating Banlist this year by posting an episode every single weekday in December. That means like 20 episodes. As you can imagine, it is a gigantic lift for me. If you can support the channel by going to patreon.com/eternaldurdles for the low price of $5, you'll be getting an episode every single weekday in December, free of charge. That's just going to happen either way. And you'll be getting ad-free content and a bonus episode every week. So if you can do that, that's great. Thanks for watching. On with the show. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Blechman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Zach, I think the ideal structure is just letting me play the Sensei's Divining Top again.
Yeah, I mean, we're so this episode, what we're doing here. So you've already the big community ban announcements already come out. So you've heard our personal takes on what we want to see banned and unbanned and whatnot. But
I didn't include initiative in mine. I gotta just toss that in. Just toss in. All right, just sprinkle that in there. Sprinkle it.
I can actually. We're gonna do this in post, Phil. I'm gonna add you in saying, and also initiative. Get rid of it.
And also, get rid of that also.
Edit that in.
They got rid of stickers and attractions, but left the initiative. I don't know what happened.
But to that end, what I'm saying here is this isn't about specific cards per se. This is about we had that discussion with Aaron Forsyth and Blake Rasmussen back in Vegas, and we discussed more transparency about the decision-making process in the format. And, to that end, we're putting this out probably the Tuesday before the ban announcement on the 16th. So, hopefully they see this as well. And they take some of our feedback as far as what we'd like to see for the structure of such an announcement. Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is the best deck building website on the internet. You can find all of my and Phil's decks in links below, including decks from this episode. And if you do, you'll be directly supporting the channel.
If they heard us in that conversation and then actually apply it in any way, or the person who is ultimately responsible for writing and making the announcement is in conversations with them at all, I assume that they would have to be to some extent if they took it in earnest, because knowing that these ban announcements are happening at scheduled increments, that it's not like, we just couldn't cross paths and figure out what to do. Like, they know that this ban announcement is coming, so they are theoretically working on this ban announcement. Nothing has changed since the last ban announcement. So, no new cards have come out that have influenced, any dynamics between then and now. So I don't expect why they wouldn't be able to apply what we talked about to this announcement coming up. And then, regardless of whether or not it actually hits all of the targets that it would need to make healthy, quote, quote, or legacy, quote, quote, healthy again. But we'll see. We'll see. That's what we're hoping for, that we see some change in their behavior. Yeah. So what my ideal situation, and Phil, you might have a different ideal situation, is sort of a force structure kind of situation, right? So we start with the cards that are going to be banned. Talk about those. Talk about, whatever, banned and unbanned, all the cards that change in the format, of course, right? And then I think what we need is a cards under further review, like cards that came close to being banned or are in discussion to be banned, why they are or aren't, and why you want to make those decisions. And then saying, these are cards that no matter what happens in the next ban announcement, we will include them in the next ban announcement to say what their current status is. Are they still being watched? Are we no longer watching this card because it's not a problem anymore because X, Y, and Z happened? Basically, just these are cards that we've had on the watch list. They're not like, oh, we're gonna ban them, for sure. But just cards that they're getting really close. They're the habitual line steppers of the format that we want to keep you updated on our thoughts and feelings on them. So, one, if you're looking to make a deck out of these cards, you're going to have, at least something to go on as far as what your next financial move is. You might decide that it's worth it to just go with that. These cards are obviously broken, or you might say, what, building a deck around this card might not be the smartest idea for me financially right now. Yeah, I would take it one step back from what you said. I agree with everything you said, but then I would actually just go one step a little bit to the forefront where they say, here's why these cards are banned. I think they have to sort of describe why their whys have weight, which would suggest telling us what it is that you don't have to go into like what you want the format identity or whatever nonsense that shit is to be, but you at least have to tell us in your why those things that you're looking at are problems, how that reflects upon cards that are on the ban list historically and why they've gone there, why you think it is a problem in the future. You guys are designing years ahead of time out. You may not test for legacy, but like you can't, it would be remarkable to have made the Nadu mistake, not thinking like, oh, 0-mana activations, excuse me, leads to like what it led to. So I think somewhere in there, they have to go to what they are trying to make the format about. And that goes to not necessarily what you want the pillars to be, but what you think the backstops are. So like if the backstop of legacy
that's another part of the announcement cycle that I want to talk about is not just pillars, but like cards that look, the pillar thing is like, it's such an amorphous word to describe a card that you don't think will be banned. What I really want is a section of this announcement. So you've got banned cards that we're looking at, and then cards that have a protected status. And generally that's going to be cards like, Wasteland, Brainstorm, Force of Will, Ancient Tomb, Days, what have you. And what these cards are is just, hey, look, these cards are not in the conversation currently to be banned. And even though, otherwise they would break a lot of those rules based on, how often they appear in tournaments, how often they appear in top deck, stuff like that. These cards aren't going to be banned. They are protected status cards. And oftentimes the reason that other cards are banned is because these cards are pushed, and we would ban them, but they are part of the format identity. And because of that, these are cards that we're not going to speak on as far as, ban like discussion, Phil, your mic's off.
I think having the untouchable cards is would just make the conversations around upcoming ban lists every single time they come around easier on us.
Yeah.
To know that that's just where their heads are at, that they are like, we will never touch these cards in this format. If you don't want to play with these cards in a format, just go play a different format. Yeah. I think that would be healthy for both them and for Legacy at large. Because, I mean, we can go on and on about how Days is always going to be a problem with any pushed card. But if they're just like, look, that is never going to be touched ever, regardless of what is printed.
It doesn't even have to be never, ever, It can just be like,
no, these are
never,
cards. Ever.
Look, they're never gonna pin themselves down like that, because then they're gonna have to take an action, and it's just gonna lead. All I want is
that's what I'm gonna say.
These are protecting cards.
If they don't want to take another, if they give us hard, fast, straight up, like this is the line. This is the line of Legacy. And if the line is ever a problem, we'll look at the things that are making it such a problem. But the problematicness that you view whatever these cards might be that are on this protected status. If you don't like them, we are telling you to find a different format.
Yeah.
That's basically, like, I would prefer that than saying like, we'll never say never on these cards. Like, who knows what we'll print that, like, maybe we'll come back around. Like, just because then it's just, I mean, that's just abusive relationship. Like,
my stance is they should have the courage to be wrong on this. I'm less worried about the exact wording on it of how they call this particular thing. If it's pillars of the format, cards we won't ban, protected status cards, none of that matters to me. What I want is cards that we just don't have to have conversations about anymore. They're in the format. These are cards that define the format, and whether they're protected or they're never going to be banned or they're pillars or they're format identity cards, none of that matters to me. I just want to know what those cards are so that we don't have to bring them up every time a BNR announcement comes.
Right. And I'm saying that I want them to actually be clear with their definition as to what it is, because if you say it's protected status, but then protected status doesn't mean anything other than when they feel like it, they feel like it. When they don't, then that's where we are at right now. Like, I want the things that they say to actually mean, like, actually have contextual means to them, so we can understand what they're saying. When they're like, oh, this card is being banned for it homogenizing the format, I want to know what your line is for when a card reaches a certain threshold that you're like, this is what homogenization looks like.
Yeah.
Is it 35%? Then tell us. It's like, this card is hitting 35%. So when we see a card that is over 35% that doesn't have the protected
for
status
a particular amount of time too,
for
right?
a particular
like,
amount of time, right? If you like, it's like, hey, if it exceeds a 3-month window and or whatever it is, then we know that we can then start talking about like, oh, this is now eclipsing into the homogeny problem. But now, is that something that is the card so much so that it's homogenizing to a negative degree? Like, then we can have like that debate. But at least we know it's crossed one of the thresholds that they would look at for a card to be banned. The other thing that I think that I want as the protected status conversation is because once you set those ground rules, like once you have the protected status of like what works, and then you also have your other clinical things that you're like, these are the thresholds by which we would consider banning a card. If they hit multiple of them, of course, that's going to apply more stress on us to think whether or not it should go or not. And then why we actually make those decisions. And you guys now know that it falls within those categories, which is why, it's like, okay, all of a sudden it's in the red, and anything that's in the red, we can choose to ban. And you guys know that that's there because these are all declared statements it's clear. Now, we don't have to make those moves, but once you know it is infringing upon these statements, then you know that a card is in danger.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have the protected status, if it's not what's the word?
Pillar?
No, what's the word? Exempt. If it's not exempt from looking at this because it's on the protected status list.
Sure.
The other thing, hold on. What I want from that, though, why I want that is because if that's the case, then they can say we're also going to be way more aggressive about banning and unbanning it for Legacy, because Legacy gets a heavier influx of cards than any other format outside of Vintage. The fact that we get the Commander product as well as the stuff that comes through, everything comes into Legacy. So Legacy has more cards added to its pool than any other format other than Vintage. And I think that to not view that kind of influx without also letting themselves have the like with Modern, where they're like, we want to, we're not sure if one ring at 60% of the format is too much. Like we're really just unsure. We just don't know. We're so tentative. We don't want to totally upend the thing because it only gets these cards per year. And we get every single Commander product with cards that are pushed for 4-player versus 1v1. And if that's the case, if that's what's going to happen, and they're like, we're just going to let this stuff continuously come in and shatter stuff, you got to be more aggressive. And then not be like, oh no, we don't know. Like we want to see how things shake out. Like we could have known, like if they're banning Frog on the 16th, and everybody like, I'm out of that conversation. I don't see it the same way other people do because I'm a shit pile of white card player. But like, if we knew that everybody was like, Frog's got to go 3 months ago, the same way that everybody was like, Grief's got to go 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And then they keep not doing it because they're like, we just aren't sure. We want to take a more conservative approach. Cool. Do that for Modern, because Modern's a supported format on your RCQ system. But like when it comes to Legacy, if you know this stuff is coming, just be aggressive. Like they take different stances on everything else when it comes to like what cards are okay in different formats. Like Expressive Iteration is okay in Modern, but not okay in Legacy. Up the Beanstalk's okay in Legacy, but not okay in Modern. You have Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time okay in Pioneer, but not okay in Modern and Legacy. Like, okay, if cards can exist in different places and you guys are curating in that way, then how about you also take your different approaches on the aggression with which you ban cards in different formats, considering that the formats are different. Like, I just think an approach to every single format in the same way when it comes to the ban list is nonsensical. The formats are not the same. They don't get cards added to the same way. The cards don't interact with other cards that exist in the pools the same way. Like, so you can be specific.
I can agree with that, Phil. I think as far as the structure is concerned, so there's currently 3 parts of the structure. It's cards that are banned, cards that are pillars, protected, what have you, and cards under review, right? But I think the precursor to all that would just be like hey, level setting the format. Like these are the numbers for which if something is wrong, then you should start looking, right? Like I think you're right on that, is that there should be some sort of like
communicated threshold.
This is a communicated threshold, a philosophy of the format, if you will, something like that just says like, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for as far as numbers, that these cards are no good. And if there are cards in the that are doing that and aren't being banned, it's because we can start to consider those cards protected. Like if if that's the case,
we can't. That's the thing. I don't want us to have to consider anything.
No. I'm saying we as in Wizards, not we as in us, we as in the community.
That's also what I'm saying. Where it's like if a card, like if they print a card that just like overhauls the format to such a degree that like a certain subsect of decks that they want to help exist in the format only can exist because of this new printing or whatever, and then at a certain point they're like, yes, this card is in 35% of decks, but that's a 35% that 35% swath of decks we think are healthy additions to the format. We would love to be able to maintain their position to exist in the format, even if it's buoyed by the fact that one card is a power outlier. Therefore, as of now, this card is given protected status. If that changes, we will tell you, but we will not ban it for as long as it has protected status. Then, if at any point they're like, we want to remove cards from protected status, then you know that it like. That's at the same time as a ban list announcement. We're banning these cards. Also, BT dubs, we're removing something for protected status because we want to be able to see with cards coming into the format that we know are coming in that might shake things up. Maybe we're going to have to reevaluate.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
With that. Yeah.
But like it's just that is communication and transparency so we know what's going on, right? Yeah. We don't have to just go by vibes or the sense that they don't care or aren't looking at legacy at all. Because we know, you and I, Zach, know from being content creators, talking to these guys on the inside at cons and wherever else we chat with them, that they do care. We know they care.
Yeah.
But the actions and behavior have to match what we know to be when we talk to them. Because when we talk to them, it's clear they care. They're talking in ways that it knows they care, and that they're just like they have to aggregate all of this information to a lot of people all at once in a way that's satisfying to as many people as possible that are going to be upset. But also, that is the line they got to walk. Right? They got to figure that out. And the way that they can do that is just increasing their transparency of actually having these definitions for us, but also for themselves when they're making these choices.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that's kind of where we are with that, right? Like, it would be nice to have, this structure that happens every time. Cards that are like being like one of the big things that we took away from that conversation, I think, was that perfect example. They mentioned Orcish Bowmasters like 2 ban announcements ago as like a card that was like very close on the chopping block. We're pretty sure, and then in the next ban announcement, no information on that, whatever. They didn't say, oh, we changed our mind or it's not a problem anymore. We're still looking at it very closely, stuff like that. So we just want to have some sort of continuity, I think is the important thing. So for that, like, cards under review thing, it's all about continuity. It's all about looking at the last ban and restricted announcement and carrying that over to this one, right? Like being like, okay, so we talked about this card. Here's the final, the final arbiter of what happens on this particular card. Moving on, So I think again, like looking at this, having that statement on like how, what the thresholds are for everything, the ban cards, the protected cards, and the cards that are like being watched, I think is honestly like it would be more just more crunchy to look at and kind of understand where the format is and how Wizard sees the format, because we don't have a philosophy for this format, and I think a lot of people really want that philosophy. So I don't know, Phil, do you have anything else to add? This is going to be a relatively short episode because I think we've kind of covered 90% of what we need.
I think that I think in order to get Legacy to a reasonably healthy spot, they would have to act like a dozen cards, and that like you laugh, you guffaw at that because it sounds like an absolute nonsensical turn of events.
Like in a perfect world, yes, but that they're just not going to do that.
They're just not going to do that. But I think the fact that they're just quote not going to do that is awful. I think that they should have the capacity and fortitude to, if they can just see that there are a ton of problems, to not be like, well, we just can't, we shouldn't, that's just not, we've never done that before. We just have never done it before. Yeah, well, cards haven't entered the card pool at the rate that they do ever before. Maybe times change. Maybe change your behavior based on how you guys are printing cards and adding and power creeping the pool. Not in a way that's bad. Just like you haven't adjusted anything other than the product output.
Well,
you've adjusted power creep. Go ahead.
Here's the thing, Phil. I think modern, to use, modern is not a format. Modern problems require modern solutions. Now,
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm getting there. Give me a second here, right? So you look at Arena, right? Arena is a perfect example of like doing it, what I consider to be doing it the wrong way. When cards on Arena just get eroded, like, and they have a new format that is just digital, right? Now, games like Hearthstone and stuff like that were only ever all digital, they were able to do that, right? Errata things as on the fly. Like, oh, okay, like it's Tuesday, and you know what? This card is obviously broken. You know, we're not going to let it ruin our ability to make money off of people playing our game, right? Like, so we'll errata it, change it, right? I just think that if we're in that situation where modern solutions are needed, right, in a paper card game that has to have a continuity about what the rules actually are and what's printed on the card, you know, physical cards, right? The only solution is banning. We have to agree on that. Like, the only solution is has to be banning. It cannot be power creep. You know, if this card's too good, we'll just print cards that are even better to like shift it out. Now, hold on, let me finish this.
I'm just putting out that I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then the bannings have to come more frequently, because losing 3 months and like this summer is a perfect example. That like, oh, we're not going to ban anything. We'll just see how things happen. Like, come on, you know, grief has to go. Like, there's no sane world where grief doesn't have to go. And again, Wizards doesn't lose that much money from like grief being like a 1 in like 400 pack, special edition card that you can open because it's a special guest. So like 1 in like 600 packs or something like that is going to contain a grief. Players know this. They're not going to just stop buying MH3 because like grief is banned. It was not a chase card in the first place, you know, like it wasn't. So if they were not making the ban because, hey, like, you know, okay, we need to make sure we sell these MH3 packs. We don't want to have a banned card in our thing. I think that's ridiculous because it didn't matter. Like, people were going to buy MH3 regardless because there are cards in there that will become the staple of the format. It's not like there's one chase card to buy in that set. So if that was the reason, it's a totally flawed reason because they're not going to lose out on any money. And if anything, they're going to get more people invested into the format because they're making actual changes to the format that are substantive. So what I think they need to do is up the rate with which they ban cards. You know, if a card is a problem, you say, hey, like, you know, MTG Weekly or whatever, in a week we're going to be posting a ban announcement. Not an emergency ban announcement. Just in a week we're going to be posting a ban announcement. That's just how the ban should come now. It shouldn't be something that we look every 3 months, we just mark on the calendar like, boy, I sure do hope the format will get good again. With more frequent bannings, the format's going to get better. So part of that structure, I think, is changing the iteration of the ban announcements, specifically for Legacy, maybe for Vintage, but specifically for Legacy, because it's a format that, yeah, maybe we only have one big tournament a year, but like there are the community thrives on these smaller tournaments, and you need to have a healthy format in order to have that community.
I feel like you and I just argued for the exact same thing in different words. You're saying
that ban announcements. Sure.
Yeah, ban announcements more frequent, and I'm saying just
I'm not arguing against you at all.
Just get rid of the 20 cards all in one announcement if you know they're problems.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I don't know. I also think that like if there's a world where they're like, okay, we designed a card to not get ruined by another problem. So like a card was specifically worded in a way to not also fall prey to another card being too good. And the example that comes to mind is they've banned Nadu in literally everything else. But Nadu is worded in such a way that it doesn't get punished by Orcish Bowmasters, which also should not exist in any other, you know, like it's like have some self-awareness, Watsy, when you design stuff that then breaks shit, to just get rid of them. Just if you make mistakes and you actively, openly tell the world that they're mistakes, transgressive cards don't need a place to live. Get rid of them. I think let's enter a new frontier here. Get rid of the cards that just make gameplay awful and make the format worse or too fast or uninteractive or boring or worse. Get rid of them. Yeah. Just get rid of them. Stop clutching pearls.
Amen. And with that said, I would love to hear your comments below as far as what you think, structure-wise, the ban list could use. Watsy may well see this video. We're basically making this entire week about banned and restricted announcements. So, there's a very good chance that they're going to see this stuff. They might read the comments. I'm certainly going to be responding to all those comments. And of course, you guys know that we're doing an episode every single weekday in December. If you can support us in that venture on patreon.com/eternaldurdles, you will get ad-free content now in your RSS feed. It's all like automatic. So I want to thank John for showing me that was an option we could do. And with that said, we will catch you next time. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.